It's 11:59 at Gun Owners Radio, and this is the Penn Patriot, music and the truth until dawn. Right now, I've got a few words for some of our brothers and sisters in the occupied zone. The chair is against the wall. The chair is against the wall. John has a long mustache. John has a long mustache. It's 12 o'clock, Americans, and another day closer to victory. And for all of you out there on or behind American lines, this is your song.
I love them with all my heart. And the idea of someone telling me I can't be with them, I can't see them every day, it's like someone saying I can't have air.
Okay, welcome to Gun Owners Radio. I think that it's about time somebody mixed Mrs. Doubtfire content with gun content. And I'm glad that Gun Owners Radio is the one to debut it. Yeah, we didn't actually do it. We debuted it. I don't know who that is, but you're a genius, whoever you are. I thought that was hilarious. So welcome, everybody. Am I right? I have Dakota Adelphia. How are you?
Good. How are you guys?
Fantastic. Why don't you do a little intro? How do people know you? Give us a little intro and a little bio.
Hi. I'm Dakota. I am a co-host on Gun Owners Radio. That's the program you're watching right now. I also teach a lot locally here in San Diego. I have a Girl in a Gun chapter. I do private lessons, CCWs, all sorts of stuff. And then I also work for Filster Holsters. And so you may see me at like a Girl in a Gun national conference teaching a holster class there, concealment class, or you may know me from the Enigma tune-ups that we do online, those free classes on Zoom every month. But yeah, that's probably how most people here know me.
I got to tell you, Filster Holster is really fun to say.
It is fun to say.
If you're not going to buy a holster for any other reason, that is a good reason to buy Filster Holster.
Yep.
And to my left is the lovely Alicia. How are you?
Fantastic.
And how do people know you, Alicia?
So I'm an instructor as well. I do conduct courses here at Discount Gun Mart, both locations. I work by appointment. I do primarily private instruction here. I also do conduct CCW courses with Second A Firearms on Balboa Avenue, as well as my own company, San Diego Concealed Carry.
And here we are in the bowels of Discount Gun Mart at the Gun Owners Radio studio. My name is Michael Schwartz, and I am lucky enough to be a fellow co-host with you two extremely talented people. And I'm also the executive director for San Diego County Gun Owners. So welcome to the show. Okay, you guys, actually, I think all three of us are, I don't know if I'd say we're experts at first aid, but I think we've had a lot of first aid training. Would you say I don't consider myself an expert, but I've definitely had a lot of first aid training. Would you consider, are you guys experts? Is that strong language, or is that accurate? Are you experts at first aid?
First aid, to me, is like the simple version, and I would say yes, I am an expert at first aid.
Okay.
I'm not an expert when it comes to like field surgery, which is what a lot of people like to consider part of first aid. Like I'm not,
we're not
putting
medics
in
or corpsmen,
like,
or we're not trauma surgeons or anything like that.
No, but
we've all
I've
had
taken
training.
a lot of TCCC type stuff, CPR, first aid. I was a lifeguard for a lot of years. I've got a pretty good.
You were a lifeguard?
You didn't know that?
I don't know if I do that. What kind of lifeguard were you?
Yes, I worked in a bunch of different places. I worked at community pools, worked at...
Community pools? Like that's cool. You're like
Community
our
pools.
own Wendy Peppercorn right here.
Yes. Community pools, and then like little water park type things, a lazy river, water slides, that kind of stuff.
Somewhere down the lazy river. And Alicia, what's your...
I've been a mom for nearly 30 years. However, I also was American Heart Association, ACLS, PALS, and BLS instructor, and I've done that for a number of years as well.
So we know what we're talking about, but we're also we're not like professionals. We haven't had like surgery training or whatever. We've certainly never been in a war zone or anything like that. I just want to make sure to balance people's expectations.
Yes. I'm not like a certified paramedic or anything.
Yeah, nothing like that.
No.
But we, if something happens, I've been in situations or car crashes and that sort of thing. I know enough to know enough. So here's what I want to show you. I thought this thing was cool, and I wanted to see what you guys thought about it functionally and where it would fit in, but I thought it was cool. So go for it.
I haven't even seen this.
You haven't
yet.
seen this. All right, play the video. Roll that footage. Look at this.
I have seen these
I've seen that.
in real life, in a real life application, and it worked.
On your tomato?
No, no, on a bleeding head.
Now, Alicia, you're a horticulturist. Have you ever had any tomato emergencies?
You know, if you don't get your water timing right, you do get some fruit split. I've never seen that.
Some fruit split. So, fruit split. Hey, okay, so you actually saw this used, like for real?
Yes.
Talk about that.
It was like a steel, I think it was a steel flax situation. I don't actually know exactly what created the bleeding, but it was at a large range event out in like the middle of nowhere. And there was just like a doctor with a big bag of stuff.
Tricks.
Yes. And then by the time I saw it, the little thing was already on, and I was like, that's pretty nifty. But it was like little ratchets, almost like the clicks on a zip tie when you pull a zip tie through, and it's like really fine little clicks. And so the doctor actually, I think the first one he put on, he went like a little too much, and the skin was like overlapping.
Buckled.
Yeah. And so then he like had to eventually, like once the bleeding slowed down, I think he like took that one off and put a better one on so that there was less of a scar or whatever. But like the person didn't even go to the hospital or anything.
Oh, wow. So
they were like, that's kind of like stitches, essentially. You know, as long as it stays stuck on there, it's letting the skin like rebond or whatever.
And what's your impression of it? What are your thoughts? Like, is that something? And what I mean is, here's what I want to know.
Yeah.
Is it easy enough to use for like a layman or someone that knows someone, you know, who's taken a few classes and has a kit that they kind of know what they're doing? Or is it more complicated than that, number one? Number two, do you think that someone should consider including that in their kit if they haven't already? So let's just start there. Those are the two.
Okay. I would say, because I didn't actually see like while the wound was bleeding, the physical application, I don't know how hard it was to like get a good connection. Was the blood slippery? Was the sticky stuff sticky enough? I don't know that piece of it, because all I heard was somebody was bleeding on the bay next door, and by the time I went over there to check it out, the thing was already on. So
Look
like,
at you checking
I
it
don't
out.
know.
So morbid.
But-
I gotta go. Someone's bleeding. I gotta go.
Well, I was like, yeah. It's
Okay.
like, there might be paperwork involved.
So you're not sure exactly how easy it is to use, but all
Right. Yeah. But I thought the aftermath of it, I was like, oh, this seems like a pretty useful thing. My perception of it is that you probably can't self-applicate it very well. But if you had if you had extra hands nearby and they could do it, it's similar to putting on like a butterfly bandage, but maybe a little bit tight, like a little bit of a better connection to the skin is what it appeared to be from my perspective. I think it's super useful for people who aren't going to go to the hospital anyway, right? Like I put super glue in my foot when I needed stitches because I didn't want to go to the hospital for stitches. And if I would have had this, I would have made my husband put that on me instead.
There actually is another product I'm seeing, like a first aid super glue that's starting to get popular as well. That was another thing I was saying.
Yeah.
Okay, Alicia, what are your thoughts? Have you ever seen this before? You have any experience with it?
I have no experience in life with it. I've not seen it in person. I actually have seen that same footage that you have shown. I like it. Just a couple of things to consider is that when you have a wound, there's an important concept called irrigate. You need to kind of flush and irrigate it out. That's important. So, when you seal it, depending on the circumstances, you might be sealing an infection, you might be sealing in a problem. So it's not a good idea necessarily to not get it looked at, depending on the severity of it. But I like it in the moment. But it may or may not be all that you need.
It's not a permanent solution. You don't see it as a
May or may not
permanent
be.
solution, but as a temporary, like, hey, let's get this person in front of a professional.
Or clean it, clean it well
Irrigate,
first,
flush it out,
right?
yeah.
Like I had a friend when I was a kid who closed a pocket knife on his finger, and it was
Been there.
super deep, like hit the bone. But I don't know, for whatever reason, everybody decided that he didn't need stitches. He definitely needed stitches, but just, butterfly bandaged it up and he was fine, right? Like I think a lot of wounds that probably need to be professionally looked at heal up just fine without, but it was a dirty pocket knife. His mom did like freaking scrub the heck out of it while she was cleaning it, got in there really good before she butterfly banded it. So
I at one point in my childhood had a slice on one hand at the tip of all 5 fingers, but
At the same time?
At the same time. But the good news is I did get a real good look at my dad's dive knife. So that's the upside.
I feel like at this point somebody needed to take the knife away from you.
Oh yeah, no question. But this was the '80s, and I was like a free roaming kid. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Like there was
free-range chicken.
free range kid. Exactly. There was no supervision. Like it was the '80s. Anyway, I was torn. I think I want to pick one up and play with it. It looks a little too intricate for a first aid kit, but I was thinking like, hey, you know, depending on your mission, you know, if you're somebody that goes hiking and camping a lot and you know you're going to be out in the middle of nowhere for a while, something like that, it might be a good idea. Kind of like a first aid plus kit.
Yeah, good thing to have at home, right? Like you have a little, you know, you work on a farm or you're working in your garage, you know, got an injury to fingers or whatever that's not a big enough deal to have to rush to the hospital. It's a nice little in between.
Yeah,
Curious how well it'll stick and how much you have to dry the surface. That's the only thought.
It doesn't look sticky, does it?
Slippiness.
I don't know.
Blood is super slippery.
We should buy some and play around with them.
All right, let's do that. Who's going to?
Next time I get cut, I'll come running.
I'll bring in the tomatoes.
I'm gonna buy one and we'll try it on your. We're gonna put it on your. We're gonna put one side on your upper lip and your lower lip, and we're gonna because if it'll
love it.
If it'll keep that close. No, I'm kidding.
Speaking of first aid, did you guys see that clip going around of the snowboarder that got injured in Aspen this week?
No.
Dang, I should have put that on the show flow. It would have been good to show you guys. Maybe we'll drop the link in the comments or something so you guys can watch it.
What do we learn? What do we learn from the snowboard clip?
There was a really what I learned is like every activity that you do has the potential for massive bleeding, even like normal, regular, everyday activities. Yeah. And you would never think to yourself, or a lot of people don't, maybe I would need a tourniquet today. I'm going skiing on the mountain. Maybe a tourniquet's a good thing to have. I am a weirdo like that, and I do carry medical supplies pretty much all the time and usually have a tourniquet on me. But this professional snowboarder who is getting ready to compete, I think at like, I don't know what the event was, but some big, you know, Aspen event. He's in the snowboard park, and you know how they have those like rails where you kind of get on the rail and you slide down it and jump off, right? So as he jumps off the rail, his snowboard edge just like nicks his wrist, you know, and it looks so quick. It's like a half a second, like a split second. His wrist just touches his snowboard. His wrist bone was still intact, but all of the tendons, arteries, and nerves in his wrist were severed except for one. And so he immediately starts like profusely bleeding. He's got like blood splatter all over his face by the time he gets to the fence that's like right there. And somebody jumps over the fence, takes their belt off, and is tourniqueting it with a belt. Somebody else comes and puts pressure on it. So the response was like 10 seconds or less. It was like the fastest response you could hope for. But if he had been in that snowboard park by himself or just waiting for the next boarder to come down behind him and there hadn't been spectators, he probably would have died. And that's how freaking fast that stuff happens. And I think for so many of us, when we do like normal everyday activities like sitting on the toilet, you guys would be shocked how many toilets have cracks and somebody sits on it and the cracked porcelain gives way and they sever major arteries in their legs. A lot of people bleed out on the toilet every year. It's a crazy thing.
So I got to tell you, I know enough to be dangerous when it comes to first aid, but when it comes to being an expert in something, sitting on the toilet, I shine. Like there's nobody out there that knows more about sitting on the toilet. So I totally get what you're saying. Like
yes, isn't that a fear of yours? I literally have a tourniquet in my bathroom now.
I've definitely been in fear while sitting on the toilet of bleeding out. So so I get you. I hear you. You and I like
on the same page.
Yeah. So
My point is just it could happen anywhere, right? So it can happen when you're doing the dishes. It could happen, you know, there's a lot of sharp things in our life and we don't think about that very often. But just your weekly reminder to get a good med kit, have medical supplies around your house, around your garage. If you're using a chainsaw in the backyard, have one with you, you know, just be smart, be safe.
Check the integrity of your toilet.
Yes, look for cracks.
There's no integrity when it comes to me and toilets, let me tell you.
Oh my
You know, Dakota, I think you should seriously make an IFAC and then brand it for snowboarders, you know? And just like, it's just a regular IFAC, but call it like a Brofac or something. Or,
have you seen those stupid like holster tourniquets where the people have the holster itself has like thigh tourniquets installed on it. So when you put your holster on, you put the tourniquets around your thigh in case you shoot yourself when you're reholstering.
Jeez, that instills
So dumb.
confidence. Okay,
So dumb.
we're gonna move on. Okay, so I think we've exhausted that subject. Thank you, ladies. I think that was very insightful, and hopefully we'll be able to save some tomatoes in the future here.
Some of you may be wondering, how does a prom queen get ready for gun prom? Dresses? Shoes? Bling? Yup. Shoes, check. Gloves, check. Glasses, check. Bling, check. This is gun prom after all. Gun prom's coming up. Don't forget to buy your tickets at SanDiegoCountyGunOwners.org.
Okay, Glock Switch. Well, there's been a lot of talk about the Glock Switch.
Yeah.
You wanted us. There's something happened. What happened here that we wanted to talk about?
Well, I just have seen a huge influx in like, especially on Facebook, but like Moms Demand Action, Every Town, all those anti-gun platforms saying things about switches and how dangerous they are and how often they're used in crimes and mass shootings and, you know, just a lot of rhetoric right now around Glock switches. And it's because they're trying to get support for other states and other cities to pass kind of what California did here with AB 1173.
Whatever it was. But yeah, the Glock ban.
1127?
1127.
I don't
AB
know.
1127.
Whatever the Glock ban was, one was. I'm a little dyslexic sometimes.
That was so 2025.
Yes, I know. Old news at this point. But you know, when we see this kind of widespread misinformation campaign online, so many people who are actually somewhat pro-gun in the sense that like maybe they would own one, maybe they have one at home, but they're not politically, you know, feeling very strong one way or the other, or they just don't know a lot about things like Glock switches. And so they read this like misinformation campaign and they think to themselves, yeah, that actually is a bad idea. We should not have these switches around, without understanding that they're already, you know, obviously not legal. And lots of people get arrested for their possession and get charged. And even in some cases don't get charged and actually, you know, see their punishment through, right? Like we were talking not that long ago about a case where somebody only was in prison for like 6 months or something when they had gotten a 10-year sentence. It was like a crazy mismatch of justice. So anyway, I've just seen a lot of rhetoric online about it.
So, okay, a couple things about that. First off, you nailed it when you said that what they're trying to do. The anti-gun extremist folks, Every Town and the Moms Who Want Action and all those stupid groups, they do a really good job, a way better job than we do of picking a thing and going all in.
Yes.
And saying, hey, every state, every city across the country, this is our thing.
Yeah.
And oh my gosh, it's the worst thing that's ever happened to humanity. And so what they're trying to do is create this narrative, or what they have done is created this narrative that Glocks are somehow
bad,
bad, or they're worse than what. I mean, it's just absolutely ridiculous. The thing is, so that's number one. Number two is, who uses Glock switches? Well, criminals.
Yes, literally.
This isn't like, you're not going to walk into your buddy's house in suburbia land and, he's going to say, hey, you want to take a look at my gun collection? And you're going to go into his closet and you're going to open up his safe and you're going to take off the lock on his gun and there's going to be a Glock switch. Like first off, it's extremely rare. It's extremely illegal, and it's used by criminals to commit crimes. And whether or not Glocks exist, crimes will be committed. What they're attempting to do is take criminal activity, conflate it with legal gun ownership, and get rid of guns. I mean, it's that simple. And then number 3 is this is yet another example of gun laws being used against Black and brown communities more than, in a disproportionate amount. And the people responsible for that are the same people who claim that they care more than everybody else about Black and brown communities. You watch Everytown, you watch Moms Who Want Action, you watch these anti-gun groups go and, march and do whatever with the Black and Hispanic community, and they're so inclusive and whatever. And then you watch them basically destroy those communities with their extremist anti-gun laws. And I just can't believe how often I watch the Black and brown communities stand side by side with these groups who destroy their communities, who destroy their families, who put their men in jail disproportionately. I mean, it's just the most hypocritical, ridiculous thing in the whole world. But anyway, so those are the whole subject is extremely interesting and bizarre, and there's so many different pieces to it. But I don't know. What are your thoughts? Like, how do we combat the narrative, or where do we go from here?
That's a really big question. I mean, one issue that I have is a lot of the arguments that they make. There might be some that are rooted in some potential truth, or at least some circumstances that were true to them. But what's hard is they don't necessarily understand what they're fighting. They don't understand a lot of the concepts and things about firearms themselves, and what is going to be effective to make circumstances safe.
Yeah, they're not really about safety.
They're not using logic and truth.
Right.
So that's a really big question. I don't know the answer.
I'll tell you one thing is, don't give any ground. Yeah. Fight like hell. And the one thing I respect about the anti-gun group is how involved they are.
Their dedication.
Very organized.
They're far more involved than the pro-Second Amendment group. I wish, and I'll tell you, a lot of people are going to get mad at this next thing, so buckle up. So I think when you go online, and if you were to just chart, the activities of anti-gun groups compared to pro-Second Amendment, you might actually see more gun content online, on YouTube, whatever, than you see anti-gun content. But it's not activism. Mm-hmm. You're going to see, hey, look at my new toy. Hey, check out my training. Look, I'm training. Look at how I train. Look at the training I do. Look, I did this. Look at this. Look how quickly I can draw. And that's not activism. Mm-hmm. What you will definitely see the anti-gun group doing way more activism than the pro-gun group.
Yeah.
And it's clear. I mean, when they get stuff like AB 1127 passed, and they're not laughed out of the state, instead they say, hey, it worked here. Let's go to another state and do it even harder. They're clearly far more involved in activism than
they're successfully doing it in a lot of places right now.
I know Women for Gun Rights is one organization that's really doing their best with the power that they have to fight and going to D.C., and they are going toe-to-toe with these organizations there. Mm-hmm. So, but giving some support to them would be one thing that the listeners can do, is give some support to organizations that are putting in the fight and going head-to-head, meeting these groups where they are and doing a lot of their bidding to D.C.
Definitely.
Well, it's
one opportunity.
Yeah, and just getting involved right here in your neighborhoods. Your city council members, your assembly members. Yep. We have a voter guide that's up right now. We have gun shop tabletops that we need people to go to and man right now. We have shooting socials, and we need you to come help people who have never touched a gun before, who need to learn right now. Dakota has a girl and a gun, and they're teaching people every single week, and she needs your help right now. And I mean, this stuff, you can do it right now. You can jump on our website. You can info at Gun Owners Radio and ask us how you can help. There's a lot of opportunities to help right here, right now in your neighborhood.
Yeah, I think one thing that is not activism but can be helpful, and something that I try to do, is if I see a conversation online, like Moms Demand Action posting something that is anti-Glock Switch but has a lot of misinformation in it. If I scroll through the comments, a lot of them will be pro-gun people saying, oh, this is stupid, blah, blah. But a lot of the comments are going to be like, don't infringe on me, blah, blah, and it's not helpful. It's not useful for the folks who are scrolling through the comments trying to figure out where they fit in, where they, have their own beliefs, because a lot of folks are not very well educated. A lot of gun owners are not very well educated on what is misinformation and what is truth. So if you see a thread where, somebody, let's say Moms Demand Action is posting something and they're saying, your neighborhood's being turned into a war zone by this $25 part that's easy to find on the street. If you see something like that, combat that with a little bit of facts, right? Give them a little storyline of, here's actually where Glock switches are being used when it's being used in a mass shooting, which they love to say. Go find some examples of these mass shootings. They're almost all gang violence related. Technically, they are mass shootings because more than 3 people are being injured or whatever. But like the actual crime itself is vast majority gang on gang crime. Not saying it's not a problem. That's obviously a problem, but it's a very different problem than your average school shooter, and it has to be treated differently. So when they're trying to lump these things in together, school shootings and gang violence, those are not problems that have the same solution to them. So get in the comments, be respectful, be well-spoken, be kind, and give people a viewpoint to look at where they could say, oh, that person's actually making some sense and maybe I agree with them.
I think it's excellent advice. One more thing on this subject. I didn't cue this up, but that's okay. I want you to hear the audio. Let me see if this works.
Mass shooting in the U.S. this morning. That makes 174 mass shootings when there's only been 119 days so far this year.
Okay, so this person is a weirdo, extremist, left-wing, anti-gun person. And her claim was that this
74.
This just came out. I think it actually came out yesterday or maybe the day before. Have there been 174 mass shootings in 2026? And if so, why haven't we heard about 176 mass shootings? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like every year, they're going to see some kind of mass shooting, to use their term. It'll hit the headlines. There'll be something unique about it or whatever. Something that, hey, we're all going to concentrate on this. You're going to see it on all the news shows. Why? If there have been 174 shootings, how come none of them have been covered by, why didn't they pick one of those 174 this year? If there have been 174 of those news stories that you've seen, why haven't any of them shown up? Or why haven't 174 of them shown up? Hell, how come 5 or 10 of them haven't shown up on your news feed when you're watching the news or when you're, clicking through the internet and looking at? Because they are distorting terms. They're using terms like mass shooting to describe things that you don't think of as a mass shooting.
Right.
If you walk into a Costco parking lot and you grab people and say, hey, we're doing a survey, tell me what a mass shooting is or tell me what a school shooting is, they will all have some kind of similar description. If you go through that 174 mass shootings that this person claims happened in 2026, few, if any of them, will match the description of what people think of as a mass shooting or a school shooting. Now, why is that important, Mike? Well, because of what Dakota said. The solutions to these things are not the same thing, but the solution they want you to have, the conclusion they want you to come to, which is take everybody's guns because people who own guns are weird and dangerous. That's why. This is propaganda. This is something that they're trying to use against sane, trained, law-abiding gun owners. They're trying to conflate crime with your right to keep and bear arms. And that needs to be combated.
And by the way, using these same statistics that congressman, Mike Thompson, I think, is who started that 178 shooting thing. Using the same data that they use, California has had the most mass shootings in 2026. Well, we also have some pretty freaking strict gun laws. So if gun laws are the solution to this problem, which we can all probably agree that they're not, we should probably be looking for different solutions.
Mm-hmm.
There you go. Okay, a couple more things. First off, next week we're going to Texas. We're going to the NRA annual show. We're going to interview some folk. Next week's show is going to be, we're going to record some interviews, and we're going to have those up for you next week. It'll be super interesting, and then we're going to trickle in some interviews as we go. But I'm looking forward. I think we're going to find some super interesting people to talk to and interview, and it'll be fantastic. If you're going to the show, we are booth 3453. We're on Media Row, and a big thanks to NRA for having us. Can't wait. I'm extremely excited about the show, and I'm extremely excited about the future of NRA, and I can't wait to see. I haven't been to an NRA annual in at least 10 years, well, more than 10 years. So under the circumstances, with all the leadership change and everything that's going on, I'm just really looking forward to it. I can't wait.
Yeah.
And then we were talking about things to do to help. Well, Gun Prom. Gun Prom's coming up. It's about a month away. Get your tickets now. Go to gunprom.com. It is at the California Center for the Performing Arts in Escondido. It is May 9th. Go to gunprom.com and you can buy your tickets. It's going to be a lot of fun. We'll have speakers. There's going to be a band. There's going to be food and drinks. It's a nice dinner. We're going to have guns and other things that you could possibly win. It's going to be great. It's going to be a lot of fun. It'll help our cause. All the proceeds this year go to support our Not Me women's program, and I'm very, very proud of that and all the things that we do. So please go to gunprom.com, help us out. So this week's show, we got all kinds of cool things we're going to talk about. We're actually going to talk a lot about what they call mass shootings and school shootings and that sort of thing. We're going to talk to Mark Skogland from Warriors Way. He's got a great podcast, and he did a fantastic interview with candidate for governor Chad Bianco and all kinds of cool stuff. So stay tuned. Let everybody know about us. If you aren't subscribed or you don't follow us on social media, please do that. Gun Owners Radio. Talk to you in the next segment.
One quick thing.
Oh, all right.
Yes,
Dakota, go ahead.
If you know somebody that's going to NRAM that you want us to interview, put it in the comments and we'll try to make that happen. We're going to be doing a bunch of interviews. So if anybody that's listening is like, oh, my favorite influencer or this politician that I really look up to or whatever is going to be there, drop their name below and we will try to make that happen.
That's good. Yeah. All right. Good. Okay. There you go. Gun Owners Radio. Let's go. Hey guys, quick heads up before we start the show. A lot of you took our off-grid communications class in El Cajon, and the feedback we got is that you wanted more than just the gear. You wanted to know how to use the gear when it matters. So here's what we did. We built the next step: tactical communication and signal intelligence. That's the evolution of the course that you took. On May 30th in El Cajon at Cargo, which is a fantastic shop if you haven't already been there. So because most people rely on information that's either late or filtered, if that's you, you're already behind. We'll show you how to use off-grid radios and real-world signals that understand what's happening in real time, so you're not guessing or waiting on someone else. The bottom line is this is about having an information advantage. So spots are limited. You want to take this class, Tactical Communications and Signal Intelligence, on May 30th in El Cajon at Cargo. Go to gunownersradio.com so that you can secure your slot right now. Okay, Gun Owners Radio, for those who do not know, we're headquartered in the beautiful city of San Diego in the horrible state of California. And there is and we, by the way, we love it. I love San Diego with my entire whole heart and soul. I've been here for basically my entire adult life, or most of it. And I just love it. I just absolutely love everything there is to love about San Diego. But there are some things about San Diego that are getting worse. However, San Diego government is flaunting the idea that what is getting worse is getting better. So they came out with a report about crime statistics. And listen, I'm real happy that crime is diminishing in San Diego, but I'm not entirely convinced that it is, and I'm not entirely convinced that it is for the reasoning that they say it is. So we're going to talk about it. But first, let's take a look at the report.
San Diego is safer than it's been for more than half a century, and city leaders say there's new data to prove it. And for the fourth straight year in a row, overall crime was down in the city. In 2025, there was a 6.3% drop compared to 2024. Chief Wall says there was a 25% drop in murders in 2025. Vehicle thefts dropped by 22%, and hate crimes are down by 32%. Chief Wall tells me he believes community groups and new tech have played a major role in deterring crime in the city of San Diego. I also asked the chief what he thinks should be improved on in the years ahead. He says gang violence saw a slight uptick in 2025, so he wants to continue working with community groups to get those numbers at a lower level.
So I got to tell you, I've never felt unsafe in San Diego like I have in other cities. Why did you laugh at that?
Interesting.
Why did you laugh at that? Why is that funny?
It's such a it's such a manly thing to be able to say that, I think.
100%. Yeah, but listen, I got to tell you, I have there have been, so I've lived in a number of different places. I've visited a number of different places. I've only felt threatened or unsafe or worried in cities. There's never been a suburban or rural area that I thought, I'm a little worried. Never, not one time. But I lived in San Francisco for a few years, and I would take public transportation. I didn't have a car, and I'd take public transportation to work. And I was 18, 19, and 20. 18, 19, and 20, and a little bit of 21. And I chased down purse snatchers. I took a knife out of somebody's hand in a Muni car once.
I felt there
unsafe.
Was danger around. Yeah.
So I mean,
get your point.
The Tenderloin. I worked right on the edge of the Tenderloin. The Tenderloin in San Francisco is horrific.
Yeah.
It is one of the worst places I've ever seen. And I've been to other cities where I thought I should not be here. Like, this is not good. But I completely and totally understand your point. Like, hey, men and women.
It was funny to hear you say, I've never felt unsafe. I was like, I literally felt unsafe 2 nights ago.
Talk about it. Why?
Well, I just mean, I think in general, as a woman, when you are, well, especially I work nights as well. Like, I have a regular day shift and then I work some nights. And so, like, last night, Monday night of this past week, I was out in I would say, relatively safe, but bordering a kind of riverbed that's pretty populated right now with unhoused people, homeless people. That just came out. That was my media training from work. Just came right out of my mouth. Homeless people in the riverbed that's like right next to our construction site. So like we have regularly kind of people who are clearly mentally unwell wandering into the construction site, yelling at us, swinging things around, picking things up off the ground on our construction site, things like that. A couple of weeks ago, we actually had to have the cops come and like remove somebody because they were being so disruptive to like the work. Right. And so it is nice from my perspective being there with a construction crew that is primarily, big, strong men. There is a piece of like, okay, if something were to happen, right. I'm pretty well surrounded with folks who would like go to bat for me. Yeah. But it still feels unsettling to just know like there's this other situation going on with somebody who's clearly mentally unwell. I don't know what they have with them. I don't,
100%. And I've said before, I was well into my adulthood when I was talking. I fully acknowledge and understand that women live in a completely different world than men do, even though we're walking side by side on planet Earth here. Yeah. I completely get that. I get it. So, and you've touched on something I thought was important. I completely 100% believe that the murder rate has dropped double digits, but also San Diego has like few murders, like very, very few murders.
Very few murders.
So if we have one less than there was last year, then you're going to see this big, huge double-digit percentage drop. Like, I get it, yes. I totally get it. And they were talking about hate crimes. I also am absolutely convinced that there were far fewer hate crimes this year than last year because there aren't a lot of hate crimes in San Diego. But what they didn't really talk about, what they certainly didn't touch on, is what you just talked about.
Yeah.
The homeless, the crazies, the druggies, and then the homeless crazy druggies. You know, the druggies and the homeless druggies and the crazies that are homeless and the druggies that are homeless and crazy. They are absolutely destroying the city from the inside out. I will not go downtown anymore at all. And I'm not sure it's because I don't feel safe, but it's because I don't want to deal with what's down there. I don't want to smell what's down there.
Yeah.
It's
gotten
bad.
bad.
It's bad. I spent years, I actually worked in the river bottom. And I had the role at one point in my career.
What does that mean? Wait, hold on a second here. I'm processing this. What do you mean you worked in the river bottom?
So I worked for a nonprofit at one point in my life where I was, being a nonprofit, I wore many hats. I was a grant writer. I was a safety officer. I was a community outreach. I also was the one to go out and survey areas in the riverbed before habitat restoration was to be done in the area. And often that included me interacting with the homeless. Yeah. Me giving notices to vacate to the homeless, and then me taking things, cleaning up the camps from the homeless, and just the interactions on a regular basis.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
And I will tell you, often we would go down into those areas certain times when we anticipated that there's. You got to know your people. You got to know who you were concerned about, who is there, but we don't have to have a physical, less likely risk, right?
Yeah.
We sometimes would bring different organizations, PERT teams, McAllister Institute, we'd bring them down there with us. I never once had a single person ever take them up on an offer for help or assistance. They're there where they want to be, and they don't want help. They don't want it. And if you... they have very little to begin with, although they make a mess with what they do have. And they can get very violent, unwell, a lot of drugs, a lot of mental health issues, and they're unpredictable. You never know.
Wow. Well,
and a lot of times they think you're out to get them or you're an agent from the government or whatever because they're like a lot of these folks have schizophrenic issues. And so when I worked downtown, it was the same thing. Like you'd see people offering help, right? Like there's teams walking downtown offering to help people bring their stuff, and they just don't want to go to these facilities because they don't want to get clean and they don't think that you have their best interests in mind.
I used to work right on Broadway. I guess I got the job about 20 years ago, and then I worked there until about 10 years ago, and it was a different place 20 years ago. Down on Broadway, totally different place. I mean, it was still kind of, but it was a totally different place. I used to walk around because I'm such a softie. I would always make sure I had a couple of ones in my pocket. And my rule was that if any homeless person, anybody asked, I'd reach in and give them $1, So regularly do that. And I was happy to do that. And I've actually gotten yelled at by people for doing like, oh, you enable them or whatever. They're going to be there with or without my $1. Leave me alone. But there was one time I was walking down the street. It was I was walking towards 5th, just past 4th, which if you remember 15, 20 years ago was kind of a sketchy place right on Broadway. It was, I don't know why they'd all kind of congregate there. And this guy comes up, this homeless guy, I see him. I'm crossing 4th, and he looks at me and he goes, you're a really good looking guy. Like in this gruff voice. He's all dirty and I think I can already smell him. You know what I mean? Yeah. I'm like, all right, reach in my pocket. He might get $2. And then he goes, but you have got to lose weight. I'm like, you don't get $1 today, buddy. Like, I'm putting those $2 right back in my pocket, walking right on by. And then I think rather than Kentucky Fried Chicken, I think I went to Subway that day. But still.
That's so funny.
What the hell? All right, okay.
Back to crime.
So here's the thing. They're talking about things like vehicle theft. They're talking about things like murder and hate crimes.
Things that aren't a problem in San Diego for the most part.
Aren't a problem. But also, I would argue that that their efforts are less effective to stop those types of serious crime committed by career criminals than they could have an effect on crazy people, drug addicts, homeless people in the streets. So in other words, they could actually do things to clean up San Diego so that you and we could walk around San Diego and enjoy the city again and not have to smell it. They could actually clean that up to where it's noticeable and you know, we'd have a nice city again. But instead, they're flaunting whatever efforts they claim they're making, which are far less effective. Whatever they do is going to be far less effective at stopping murderers, grand theft auto.
How do you create less murders in your city?
They're completely and totally full of it. That police chief is absolutely blowing smoke up everyone's keister. It's total BS, pal.
like to see them
And if he,
now.
by the way, police chief, if you disagree with me, come on the show and let's talk about it. I will go toe to toe with your BS that you just said on the news all day long. It's his job to, number one, do what the city council and the mayor say, and he's just trying to make himself look good and effective. They didn't actually have any kind of serious effect. And on the things they could have an effect on, they didn't do.
Yeah.
They didn't have an effect on it. They didn't actually make serious efforts to clean the town up.
I'd like to see the math on how they came to their numbers.
100%.
Release that.
I don't think it's true. There's a few
What part? What do you mean?
few things at play. Because the first thing was that crime rates in general have dropped in San Diego. That this year has lower crime across the board, I think was the first thing they said. I don't think that there was less crime in San Diego this year than last year. I think that because dispatch went quiet, right? We just had that situation where SDPD is now on fully encrypted dispatch channels. You can't listen in anymore. We're also not getting very good reporting on the crimes that are happening. I had crimes going on in my neighborhood with police helicopters, saying felon, lock your doors, whatever. And I never saw anything about it. Could not find anything on the Citizen app, on Nextdoor. Nobody knew what had happened because when you can't listen in, you don't get the neighborhood media folks who run to the scene to take video so that it can go on the news, right? Like that's how you get your evening news if the Fox 5 truck isn't already there. So we're not getting that opportunity as a city anymore to hear about the crimes as they're happening. So I think it's easier for them to maybe just not report certain things that are happening or not report the numbers accurately because there's nobody to say, hey, that's bullshit. There were 7 break-ins last night. Like there's no checks and balances when there's no media coverage.
Okay, so one thing that I do think was effective that I didn't mention is so we all agree, by the way, before we go into because it matters.
Well, agree. They've also decriminalized a number of different things too.
1,000%.
So
1,000%.
So if they stop calling certain activities crime,
Yeah.
then
Frequency
crime's going to go
reduction.
down.
Crimes went down, yeah.
So, but we all agree that you and I don't walk around day to day in fear of, getting our car stolen or getting murdered. But we do walk around day to day worried that there's going to be some homeless person, drug addict, or crazy person that might, assault their entire parts of the city that we avoid going to because of that. Now, one thing that I do want to show, and let's pull up that link from the sheriff's office. They gave absolutely no credit. They didn't even mention the fact that there is something that has been that is effective when it comes to someone stealing your car if you're in it and murdering you or someone you love, and that's the fact that if you look back at 2025, January 2025, there were 23,459 CCWs issued. This year in January, there are 28,327. I'm sorry, these are active, actually. Issued's a different number, but these are active CCWs. In fact, we're already up to 28,810. So in 10 years or so, just under 10 years, 8 years, we've gone from 1,100 to 28,810. And just in the past year, we've increased that number by 5,000. So there are 5,000 additional people right now able to defend themselves and carry a firearm than there were just last year.
Yeah.
That's actually something that's going to not only deter crime, but it'll stop crime when the types of crime they're talking about.
Yeah.
If you don't want to be the victim of a hate crime, then you need to be able to defend yourself. If you don't want to be the victim of a carjacking, then you need to be able to defend yourself. If you don't want to be the victim of murder or someone you love be the victim of murder, then you need to be able to defend yourself. And that's exactly what this law, the ability to defend yourself, the ability to get a CCW and carry a self-defense tool when you're outside your home. That's exactly what this law does. So the one thing that is increasing that is, without argument, helps murder and carjacking and hate crimes decrease. They didn't even mention it.
Yeah.
And they fight against it.
Yeah, especially considering like SDPD has been struggling over staffing issues. There have been major staffing issues for the city, and so it's interesting that they're trying to take credit as the police, as SDPD, instead of being like, perhaps there's some shared credit here, right? Like both us and a lot of you guys now carry guns, and apparently criminals don't like getting shot at. So it's been working well, right?
It's been working really well. So, okay. If you need help getting your CCW, go to gunownersradio.com. We actually have a link. We will walk you through it, especially here in San Diego. We also have links for Riverside, Orange, and Inland Empire. But honestly, if you're somewhere in the county and you're not sure what to do, if you just go and watch our video, it'll probably be very similar in your area. Or contact us, let us know, and we'll help you out. But if you're in San Diego, if you're in Orange County, if you're in Inland Empire, Riverside, San Bernardino, go to gunownersradio.com/CCW, and we will help walk you through, and you can help lower the crime statistics, particularly when it comes to murder, carjacking, hate crimes. So there you go.
When your rights are on the line and the fight gets real, you need a lawyer who knows the deal. From gun laws to courtrooms, he'll stand by you. John Dillon fights for the red, white, and blue. John Dillon defending your rights, keep and bear arms with truth and might. From GVROs to self-defense calls, Dillon Law Group, he fights for us all. When freedom's under fire, who you gonna call? Dillon Law Group, justice for all. DillonLawGP.com.
So one of my favorite episodes of Gun Owners Radio in the past 8 years, or 504 episodes, was one that we didn't even do. A couple weeks ago, we did an interview of Sheriff Chad Bianco, who's running for the governor's spot here in California, and San Diego County Gun Owners has endorsed him. Orange County Gun Owners has endorsed him. Inland Empire Gun Owners has endorsed him. He is the clear Second Amendment candidate when it comes to governor in California. I was invited on a podcast to interview him, and I did. And it was wonderful. And then we did highlights on our show to highlight that interview and show you the fantastic interview with Chad Bianco. Well, that podcast was Mark Skogland. Mark Skogland is with Warriors Way Podcast, and he is also the owner of CCW Solutions Group up in Riverside County. And his podcast, Warriors Way Podcast, is brand new. In fact, that interview with Chad Bianco was their first episode, and it was truly an honor that you asked me to be on your show, Mark, and be a part of that. And I'm so thankful, and I thought you did an excellent job.
Oh, yeah, I appreciate you taking the time to come and do that. And thank you for having me today. It certainly was our first episode and working out the kinks. Learn actually from the expert here and how to do our podcast moving forward.
I thought it was awesome. I mean, the opportunity to sit down with, first off, I've been a fan of Chad Bianco since before he got elected. Gun Owners Radio. In fact, I don't even think we were Gun Owners Radio back then. I think we were Gun Sports Radio back then. Mm-hmm. But we, even before he got elected, were talking about, hey, this is the guy you need to vote for. That was before Inland Empire Gun Owners had been invented. So we didn't really have much of a mechanism to help him get elected, but he did a fantastic job. And in our first meeting as Inland Empire Gun Owners, we actually gave him a recognition award, and we were so happy to do it. I'm so glad that Riverside County he elected Bianco, because he was running against what I would say a fairly popular incumbent, but he wasn't good for your CCW issuance at all. So anyway, my whole point is, I don't we need to get embroiled in that, but what I do like is the fact that I got to sit down with him for 2 hours. You and I got to talk to him, and we really got to get into the meat of a lot of things that were Second Amendment and beyond. And I'm curious, that 2-hour interview, what was one thing that stood out to you?
I guess the thing that stood out the most was just how clear he spoke, and about his level of experience. And really, I mean, I've known him for a long time, but just to see him speak about his executive level experience where he's able to really step into the position of governor, I truly believe that he's the only one of the candidates that we have on here. And he solidified that really for me in our interview.
I think you're right. I think that the executive experience that he brings to the table makes him completely unique of just about all the candidates. That if you look at the top, I was going to say top tier candidates, but I don't mean quality. I just mean the ones that are polling near the top. So you got Bianco, you got Hilton, you have Swalwell, you have Porter, and a couple more. None of them have any executive experience except for Sheriff Chad Bianco. And not only does he have the experience, but it's actually been successful. He's actually done things that he can point to that have made the people in Riverside made their life better because he knows what he's doing when it comes to being an executive. And I just don't, he's at the top of the heap, so I'm happy about that. But I don't understand why anybody's voting for anybody else. I mean, if you look at the problems that we have here in California, and we talked about them in the intro, we talked about them in a couple different segments on this show, some of the issues that we have here in California. If you match up strengths with California's weaknesses, I don't know anybody. I mean, Bianco matches up better than anybody. I mean, I can't even think of somebody who's not running that might be better. I mean, I don't know, Abraham Lincoln's ghost, maybe, but other than that, the guy's doing a great job. And, does that mean he's flawless? I don't think he's flawless. I know some people have some gripes over some of the things, some of his stances, but if you look at him, wholly, I think he's a fantastic candidate with a fantastic chance. I think we have a unique opportunity politically here, and I think it's fantastic.
Yeah, I will say he is, of everybody that I've spoken to, and I've actually spoken with a lot of people, he is truly like a man of the people. I remember when he ran for sheriff the first time, I pulled him aside, and I was a nobody. And here's this guy running for sheriff. I was with the department, and I said, I'm only one vote, but why should I vote for you? And he was very clear and concise and spoke about leadership and everything. And I was like, okay, he's our guy moving forward. So he's not, his motto for our department is service above self. And that's really who he is. He's a selfless person, and he'll talk to anybody, and everybody matters to him. Not just these people of influence. Everybody's influential in his eyes. And I'll tell you, I know one of the things you might talk about is that endorsement that came out by President Trump. I don't believe that was an endorsement of that candidate. I think it's a Fox News endorsement, in my opinion.
I don't know. Maybe. I'm not really all that concerned about it. I'm not convinced that someone else's endorsement is all that influential. I mean, okay, Trump probably knows Steve Hilton better than he knows Chad Bianco. And so he said, hey, this is the guy I think everyone should vote for. That doesn't, what does that actually mean? You know what I mean? Right. Does that mean that he absolutely is the best person to vote for? I think we could sit here for 2 hours and analyze every piece and part of that. But at the end of the day, there's one survey that counts. And there's actually two surveys that count, but the first one's in June and the second one's in November. Right. But I do question in this day and age, I think back in the 60s and 70s and 80s, an endorsement mattered when you were able to say, hey, you know what? I don't have a lot of information. I get a daily newspaper. I listen to the radio on the way home from work, but I can't do a bunch of research. So if somebody out there, who I respect, endorses somebody, then I'll probably listen to that person and go, hey, you know what? I respect that person. I trust them. An endorsement matters. In this day and age, when you can research, someone's underwear size, and I mean everything about anything that they've ever done, I'm just not so sure that endorsements in general were. I don't know, Alicia. How much when you go to vote? How much does an individual, like an elected official or any individual, how much does their endorsement really impact your vote?
Not much at all. I mean, to be honest, I do look at endorsements. I take a look at it, but then I take a look. I'm like, who else are they endorsing? What are their motives? Kind of what is their history been? In the end, not much.
Yeah, Dakota. Same question, Dakota. What do you got?
Yeah, pretty much nothing. I mean, I
I know, right?
it doesn't matter to me at all. I don't really care about other people's opinions on things. I will look at, like, for example, San Diego County gun owners endorsement list, or like I'll get some data points of like, okay, how is this person on 2A issues or on this issue that I care about or that issue that I care about. But like if I hear somebody on the radio like this is endorsed by this person, I'm like, I literally could not care less. I do not care.
Well, and there's a very let's draw a distinction there. When you're looking at like our voter guide and you're looking at an individual's endorsement, what's the difference? The difference is
big difference.
Yeah, where our organization vets, why we're endorsing a candidate. Where we stand. How we vet and what we do. An individual, we have no idea what Trump has, you know what I mean? Like we don't know what his angle is.
Well, and I know what questions you asked in order for somebody to get on the list. And I know that you asked questions that I care about. Anybody else that's endorsing somebody could be endorsing them for any number of reasons. There could be financial motivation. There could be all sorts of things, not because they actually align with them on policy, which is really the only thing I care about. How are you going to be in the arena of policy once you get elected?
So, Mark, what was your motivation for starting a podcast? You're correct me if I'm wrong. You just retired recently from the sheriff's department. And of course, you run CCW Solutions Group, where you help people get their CCW and train and do all the important things when it comes to being a firearms owner. What was the motivation for doing a podcast?
Information, just to get our stuff out there. And really, CCW Solutions Group, when I started it, my initial goal was I was the CCW coordinator for Riverside County. I worked directly for Chad, Sheriff Bianco. And on that podcast, that's why he was there. We were able to get the CCWs up to 65,000 in Riverside County, which is amazing. But I retired from Riverside County initially to help law enforcement agencies with their concealed carry process, help them streamline it, make it cheaper, make it easier for the public to get their CCWs. But the problem is agencies don't want to do that. You really have to get an
What do you
agency.
mean? Why don't they want to talk about that? Why don't agencies want? What specifically don't agencies want to do, and why?
Well, I believe that the vast majority of California, in the bigger cities, I'll say, not the vast majority, bigger cities, we already know that everything's run by Democrats. In the state of California, it's a 40-60, right? It's a 40-60 mix.
I had no idea.
Yeah. So that being said, a lot of these people are anti-gun, but I guess they just don't understand that their Second Amendment is no different than my Second Amendment. So that's kind of one of the things that we want to get out there. But agencies, I've come to discover, and you know this as well, they make it difficult for the public to get their concealed carries. They do that, and then they don't provide any information on how to do that. So it's kind of why we started, is to help the agency, those that needed help, which almost every agency in the state of California does, and help the public really understand the concealed carry process. So I think I had a conversation with you in January about, I have a goal. My goal is to get concealed carry to 2 million in the state of California.
Nice.
It's a pretty lofty goal. There's 40 million people in California and over 8 million gun owners. So how do we get it to 2 million? Well, the only way to do that is to provide a platform for people to be able to be engaged in and filter that information through there and let people know, because the vast majority of people don't know that getting a concealed carry is even a possibility. They think it's too impossible. So that's why we started the podcast. And then through the podcast, I really wanted to be able to highlight people that have concealed carries, that were able to basically use that to protect themselves, protect others. So we have a lot of great episodes with heroes that have entered the fight and saved others, and we got a lot more coming. So pretty
Truly,
excited about
you
that.
guys do. You have some really great guests. You have co-hosts, which again I was honored to be one of those co-hosts. I like that angle where you bring you bring somebody on to interview or introduce a subject, and then you bring a co-host on with you that's different every week. I've thought about doing the same, but these two will not leave. I cannot get rid of them, so I got to stick with these two. But
I'm always
So
available.
rude.
but I got to tell you, I think that you've done a great job. Your guests are wonderful.
Thank you.
I've enjoyed it. Some of them I even know, or we've interviewed and have experience with, and you uncovered things that I didn't know about or hadn't asked. And I think you're doing a fantastic job. I think that
Well, thank you.
leading off with Chad Bianco was a blessing, and then having me on your first podcast was a genius move too. But I think that you're doing a great job and you're moving in the right direction, Mark. And I'm truly honored and jealous. Now, listen, we sound like a couple of fanboys here, just gushing over Chad Bianco.
Right.
And I kind of am a fanboy. I really, truly, before he ran for governor, I would tell people my favorite elected official was Chad Bianco. So now I'm in this tough situation where I'm trying to be impartial, but I'm not. I really like the guy. I think he's doing a great job. However, do you have any concerns? Is there something where you think to yourself, gosh, I'm not so sure. Gee, I wish this were different, or maybe we don't align on this?
Are there things that I don't align with the sheriff on? Certainly. I guess I'd have to think about that. I don't know off the top of my head. I do know, just from my time, even in the department, his decision making is pretty sound.
Yeah.
I one of the things he's very selective in how he responds to things. He's very smart in the things that he says, very calculated. Sometimes I wish he'd be a little more off the cuff, but everything is like, the perfect answer, almost the perfect answer, I guess you would say. But are there things that I don't align with him on?
Well, before you go
Yeah,
there, so in his answers that you feel or that you say are, calculated, or you wish he was more off the cuff, does he sacrifice sincerity for calculation?
No, I think that he actually mirrors them kind of perfectly. So I know that he is very smart. He's been doing this a long time, but as far as running sheriff, very new into the whole political realm. But I guess I think he's very sincere in the things that he says. I think one of the things that connect people to the public, or connect the public to politicians, is speaking from the heart. And he does speak from the heart quite a bit, but I think that if he did that maybe a little more, people would be like, oh, that feel more connected. He does a great job connecting himself to the public, and I wish he would maybe work a little more on connecting to the department to the public, because it's one of the things in law enforcement, there's always that separation. Well, this isn't his department, this is the people's department, right? So how do we get to the point where we feel like, I don't want to say that we live in Mayberry, but how do we get to the point where we feel like the department is truly working for us? So, and that's one of the issues with not necessarily Riverside County. I do see it sometimes there, but a lot of these other agencies in their CCW units, like, it's a customer service based unit.
Yeah,
Like, we're there to
supposed to
serve the law abiding citizens, right? And we serve citizens all together, but these are the people that are out there trying to exercise their Second Amendment right and have the legal ability to do so. But I've seen a lot of concealed carry weapons units treated as though it's like another call for service.
Yeah.
Like, you do all the work, I'm not going to help you through it. And I think that's one of the differences in Riverside County, especially when I was running it, where I treated everyone like they were my grandma, or they were, like, How can I help you? And that's one of the things that I wish agencies in general would do, is just to reconnect with the public,
Like
restore
Riverside
that
did.
public faith and trust.
Well, I got to tell you, Mark, that didn't work. We still sound like fanboys. What do you got, Dakota? You were winding up there.
I was winding up. Do you have any experience interacting with some of the counties that have, what I'll refer to as asinine policies, like not
100%.
allowing people to qualify with red dots on their guns or anything like that? Have you interacted with any of those counties, or do you have any insight on where some of those policies came from?
Yeah, so one of the things that I did as the CCW coordinator for Riverside County is everyone's aware that there's a statewide conference up in Vacaville. You guys have talked about that
Yep,
before.
we've sponsored it.
Right. I was actually
one of the sponsors, one of the many.
I've been to that conference every year for the last 5 years. So in Riverside County, we when I was running the program, I developed a symposium where agencies would come to Riverside County so we could get them all swimming in kind of the same direction, right? And it really gave me an opportunity to work with a lot of these agencies. And I know you were asking a question specifically about agencies, and LA is a big agency. LA Sheriff, LAPD. Their decisions that they make are political. I think that people get involved in the CCW unit that have no right to be there, but either the board of supervisors or the city council don't support it, and it filters down to the agencies rather than just go by what the law says. This is what the law says. Like, we're not going to add to or from. And they have specifically, if we want to talk about built-in policies, LAPD specifically has a policy built into their program to delay it for people. You have to email You've got to email the agency and request to be added to a CCW list. And when they're ready to process your application, they'll respond back and say, now you can apply. I just don't understand how that serves the public. And if someone were to have a situation going on in their life where they felt like they needed to have a concealed carry,
right?
Now they have to wait 1.5 years, 2 years to exercise that right, or just to get involved in the process. So I do know that LAPD, I worked with them specifically in trying to help with their process, and I just, not to speak poorly about the agency, I just don't think that they care about the public.
Yeah, no, I agree completely. I mean, I'm thinking even like Contra Costa and Alameda and some other agencies where they have like some of the craziest policies I've ever seen or read. I was just reading something the other day that said, if you make any modification to your firearm aside from changing the color or height of your sighting system, or changing, I want to say it was like grip stippling or adding grip tape to the grip of your gun. Like, those were the only legal modifications. If you did anything else to your firearm, exchange the barrel, do anything to your trigger, literally anything at all aside from those two categories, you had to requalify with that firearm. Yep. And if you hadn't requalified with the firearm and it was used in a self-defense incident, they would pull your CCW forever and you were ineligible to ever reapply. It's crazy. It's mind-boggling.
I can't even add a Glock switch to my carry gun.
Okay.
No, I'm kidding.
So I'm curious.
It is ridiculous. It is ridiculous. Why do you think? And Dakota brings up a good point. Mark, what do you think it is? Like, I meet and talk to you. I meet and talk to Chad Bianco. I meet and talk to a number of law enforcement officers who are very pro Second Amendment. They know what they're talking about. They understand the freedom and what carry does. Why is it different in law enforcement in Alameda or whatever? Like, why are some of your colleagues, and you can't speak for them, but what's a theory you have? Like, what's the difference? They've gone through similar experiences. They've had similar jobs. They've seen similar things in their career. What's the deal? Why is there a chasm of difference between them and you guys?
One word: politicians. They get involved in the process, and especially with these smaller agencies, they really have a police chief is appointed, right, by the by the mayor, so the mayor really has a say in everything that happens in that department. You can place them at will. I think one of the other problems is sheriffs that forget that they're an elected official, an official of the people. So this is how I'm going to run my department, despite what their board of supervisors say or their support. So I think that they're thinking of, you know, career preservation,
Right.
or, you know,
Long-term political
right,
gain. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think that's really what the problem is, and quite honestly, like I said, we all know that California is, especially in these larger areas, predominantly Democrat. There's a huge anti-gun, and you guys know this, anti-gun movement amongst them. Every time there's an incident, they say, "Oh, let's reduce the guns." Well, the gun doesn't pull its own trigger, right? So they blame the gun and not the person.
Hey, quick question. If you carry every day, when's the last time you actually wiped down your firearm? Yeah, exactly. Probably a long time. Problem is, sweat, lint, moisture, it builds up fast, and you know you should be taking care of it, but life gets in the way. That's why I like the Seal One gun rag. I just keep it right next to my EDC, and at the end of the day, you do a quick wipe with your Seal One gun rag. It only just takes a few seconds. I mean, it's super, super easy. Cleans, lubricates, protects, all in one step. Smells nice too, so you can dab it behind your ears and use it as aftershave. Go grab a Seal One gun rag at your local store and make it a part of your routine. Seal One gun rag, check them out.
So I'm curious, Mark, with your experience in the different issuing agencies, for people that are in these counties that are very restrictive, is there any, what can we do as citizens looking to attain, keep, do you have any recommendations as to what we can do to help make changes in those counties to make this better?
Is there some effective bullying that we could do?
Well, so, of course. And you know, it was one of the things that we covered on the podcast is continue to vote for people that are securing your rights, not taking them away. And quite honestly, I mean, and that's, I think, one of the reasons Chad Bianco does so well in Riverside County. He ran on concealed carry, and he's delivered on that promise. So, you know, he believes in the right of all law-abiding citizens to be able to protect themselves when seconds matter, because he knows that law enforcement is always minutes away. Like, you are your own first responder or immediate responder. It takes time for law enforcement to get there. So if we can just continue to arm more people, an armed society is a polite society. I know you guys have heard that before. So I know you had a previous segment on where you're talking about that. Like, if someone knows that you're carrying a firearm, they're less likely to engage with you. So, and not necessarily, you don't want to make it known, but if you produce your firearm, even as a moment of self-defense, they're more likely to back off rather than engage in a gun battle.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
To answer your question, voting is really the thing. And that's one of the things that Michael and I, when we were talking to Sheriff Bianco, there's over 8 million gun owners in California. It's like, if we could just get half of those people to vote, we would be able to change the face of California.
When you were the CCW coordinator, what type of power did you have as far as these policies go? Like, when we see a policy come out of a county that says you can't carry a gun with a red dot on it, who is really the driver behind that? I know one of the counties that I had talked to, they said there's like a little board, I guess, of firearms experts is what the police officer I spoke to called them. But they had made this recommendation, I guess, that red dots often, batteries die and they get stuck on fabric and things like that were like their reasons for why people shouldn't be able to carry a gun with a red dot on it. So I question their expertise. But anyway, when that sort of a policy comes out, is there somebody that those citizens, like the concealed carriers in that county, can reach out to that could actually make a change? Or once that policy is in place, do you see it's almost impossible to kind of get it reversed?
I think it's very difficult to get reversed, and this is why I say that, because law enforcement agencies, CCW units, I'll just, because we're talking about that, they're not really accessible to the public. Like they process your application, and that, I can continue to refer to Riverside County because that's where I worked out of. But we made ourselves very available to the public. Very, like I told Michael, even in our podcast, my cell phone was given out to almost every concealed carry holder. So if you have any problems, you can call me directly. So that's, I think, one of the differences is, my goal when I first came into the department, 20 years ago, was to try to make this department more like Mayberry, connect those people. And I never lost that. I often joke that, when I was on patrol, I would give more hugs than handcuffs because people are hurting, right? And people just need help. And yes, I arrested a lot of people, but you able to make that, if you can make that connection to people and just let them know, like, hey, I'm accessible. You need anything? But units in general just aren't accessible to people anymore. And I see some of that happening really in Riverside County as well. The wait time is starting to increase because really of staffing levels. Like nobody can get an appointment for over 2 months now. It was 3 weeks when we were running it for a while, but staffing levels, people are hurting. These agencies are hurting for people, and that was really one of the reasons that I started CCW Solutions Group. But these ridiculous policies, if the agencies would just run on common sense, like we would, well, like we did in Riverside County, and I'll tell you, you say the power. I would say the influence that we have. We had kind of a unique position in Riverside County that my CCW unit worked intimately with like our range staff and the firearms experts. So if there was something that was coming out, I would just call my, the range supervisor and say, hey, he's a former SWAT guy. What do you think about this? What should we do about this? So that's how we were able to keep ahead of a lot of the restrictions by DOJ that came down with SB2, and just take a proactive and active role in CCW for the public. So I just think, and there is a board, ultimately the sheriff makes that decision. But one of the things that I appreciated about Chad Bianco is everybody has their seat on the bus. So he's driving the bus, but he's got other people in charge that do things. And for the time that I was there, I was the guy in charge of CCW. So I would confer with him pretty often and say, hey, what do you think about this? And we would roll out with it relatively quickly in advance of any upcoming changes of policies by the state.
Nice. Sounds like you did a great job in that role. So thank you for the time that you spent there.
Yeah, thank you. Oh, I appreciate that.
What kind of feedback did you get from the interview with Bianco?
Well, certainly there are people that dislike him, but I think the vast majority of the public, and we talked about this, the vast majority of the public support Chad Bianco. They, for a lack of better terms, people often use the word love, but there's a lot of people that love Chad Bianco, and they're all, he's a rock star. So people just want to be near him.
In Riverside, he absolutely is a rock star. I knew that well before he started running for governor. I just like him.
I will tell you that every year, and this is the difference between Chad Bianco and a lot of other sheriffs. When I was the coordinator, every year we would go to Vacaville, Sheriff Bianco would be there.
Yeah.
Because he had an active role in the CCW. Now, a lot of these other agencies, and this is where, these, delays are built in. The sheriff has no say in the CCW process, no say in the policies. He trusts the people that they put in place, but Chad Bianco is a trust but verify kind of guy. Like, oh, I want to make sure if someone asks that I know the answer to it as well. So I'm not caught off guard or, hey, what's the policy on this? He's intimately involved in almost every aspect of the department, which why I believe he's probably the best person for the state of California.
You know, one of the things in the interview that you talked about that I think got some people fired up that I wanted to bring up because it is a polarizing subject in the gun community, and I think it's one of those deals where we don't get nuanced enough when we talk about it, and it turns into a, you know, this versus that and whatever. Open carry. We talked about it briefly, and you were saying, hey, you know what? Not a fan of open carry. Talk about that. What do you mean by you don't like open carry? And then what are the reasons you don't like open carry?
Well, I don't like people knowing what I have, right? Quite honestly, if they're going to come up to me and intend to do harm, certainly I'm going to withdraw that. But I don't want to give them an opportunity to see all my tools before I present them. So, I mean, quite honestly, open carry to me, I don't want to say it's reckless. Certainly, there's a lot of training that has to go along with that open carry, but concealed carry for me is really the safest place for the public to walk around, to be that first line, because if you have an open carry, you know, you probably are going to be, I don't want to say easily overtaken, but now you're going to struggle for your firearm that's on the outside of your body versus something that's really, really close to your body.
And I think that was one thing that people, when you say like, hey, I don't like open carry, the folks who are passionate about open carry immediately think that you want it outlawed. You know what I mean? And that's where we don't get nuanced enough. We don't talk about it. I don't think anybody here wants to outlaw open carry. In fact, I think one of the reasons to make sure that open carry is legal is to protect people who carry concealed. Because when you're carrying concealed and you accidentally, your shirt comes up, something like that, you know, you don't get arrested. You don't have to have law enforcement, come and question you. And so there are a lot of reasons to support open carry. I think open carry is very appropriate when you're out in the back country or you're out of a suburban area or an urban area. So I don't think you're talking about, hey, we should make it illegal or open carry people are bad. You were saying that, hey, my preference is that I carry concealed and I have my reasons for it, right? Is any part of that incorrect or inaccurate?
No, that's absolutely correct. If California, I just know that California will probably never be an open carry state.
No.
I would love it for us to mirror Texas. Probably not going to happen, right? But if open carry was an option, I just know that I will not be open carrying, and that was my personal preference. I want to, be able to have the surprise, like.
Which makes sense. And by the way, it's interesting. Usually it's an open carry versus CCW when it doesn't have to be open carry versus CCW. But one thing that was pretty interesting that happened a couple months ago is there was a decision by a very pro-Second Amendment judge, and it kind of blew up. It kind of blew up that whole open carry versus CCW because the decision was, yes, you have to issue open carry permits in California, and the open carry folks are going, wait a minute, that's not what we want. We just want open carry. We don't want to have to get a permit. We don't want, you know what I mean? It was kind of this interesting. They'd never thought about the concept of an open carry permit, which, by the way, all that's on hold. Don't go out and apply for your open carry permit. It's not something that can happen. But what was very interesting is the open carry folks said, well, we're going to take this to court and we're going to force open carry to be legal. And the judge, who it's Van Dyke, he's extremely pro-Second Amendment, knows exactly what he's talking about, couldn't have been a better judge to write the decision, said, you have to issue these open carry permits. It's unfair if you do not. He didn't just say, hey, I'm the supreme leader and I'm going to force open carry with or without a permit. He actually stuck to the letter of the law and said, "Hey, I'm going to decide this thing based on the law," which I thought was interesting. And again, the open carry folks were they kind of got that, like you have a couple dogs, don't you, Dakota?
Yes.
When they kind of look at you with that kind of tilted head, like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
How come I don't get the cheese
Did
right
I
now?
hear walk?
Yeah,
Did I
so
hear walk?
they kind of had that going on. No, I'm just kidding. I don't mean, oh God, I think I just insulted the entire open carry community by comparing them to confused dogs. But the whole thing was really, really interesting. Were you on top of that at all? Did you see that decision?
Yeah, absolutely. And to speak to your point, I think they were like, they didn't want any restrictions involved in that. Like open carry, we could do it throughout the state, and for them to know that, okay, now you've got to apply to get an open carry. They're like, no, that's not what we asked for. Well, be careful what you wish for, unfortunately. So hopefully, we'll see if anything changes on that, in my opinion, unless there's an extreme or a big change in the state of California, that'll be delayed for years and years through the courts.
Yeah. What else do you want people to know, either about Warriors Way podcast or CCW Solutions Group? Anybody that's listening, what do you want to make sure they walk away knowing?
Well, first of all, obtaining a concealed carry in California. Obtaining a concealed carry in California is absolutely obtainable. It's a very easy process. Some agencies have built-in delays and stuff like that, but those things can be navigated. So I think ultimately my message is get your concealed carry. You can get it. CCW Solutions Group, you can go to our website, ccwsolutionsgroup.com, and I will help you. My company will help you. And we're actually uniquely positioned because when I transitioned away from Riverside, almost my entire staff came with me as far as my investigators. So I've got 12 investigators that I have on hand to conduct backgrounds and these investigations. So if someone needs help navigating the concealed carry system from the inside or from an insider's view, I can do that because I was intimately involved in that entire process. So they can go to CCW Solutions Group. We've got a concierge page, or people can just call me and say, hey, is this, something that I can get? Because a lot of people don't believe that they'll be able to get it. There are certain, obviously, restrictions by the state based on criminal history and medical or mental health. But ultimately, we want everyone to get a concealed carry. But as far as the podcast, we're looking for sponsors. We would love for this podcast to reach the nations. And we've had people as far as Florida and New York say, we love your podcast. We just want to continue to spread that. So subscribe to it, but if you're a business out there, you're a 2A business, and you would like to support us, we'd love to have you sponsor our podcast. We got a lot of great guests. So actually, probably about half an hour ago, we just dropped the Sheriff Villanueva interview on our podcast. So that was a good interview. He talks a lot about the corruptions, the lies, and how the state of the Los Angeles Sheriff's Department, in his opinion. So all of those things are his opinion. But again, from an insider's perspective, he was able to provide a lot of information that's just not open to the public. So,
Nice.
we got a lot of great guests, a lot of great heroes coming on. So
Good.
I just spoke with, and I'll just give you, everyone's aware of the Nashville shooting, the school shooting. I've got that guy coming on soon as well. The school shooting of, it's the officer Mike Colazzo will be coming on to talk about his mindset and really rushing in and the difference between him and the response at Uvalde, right? So those are the things that people want to hear about. And then I think it really connects people to law enforcement. So we'd love your
Outstanding.
support.
Okay, good. So watch Warriors Way. If you're interested in sponsoring Warriors Way, by all means, reach out to Mark Skogland in Riverside County. check them out. Check out ccwsolutionsgroup.com, especially if you want your CCW here in California. Mark, thank you so much. You're awesome. Again, Mark Skogland, Warriors Way Podcast, and CCW Solutions Group. Thanks for giving us your time, man. And I'm going to talk to you real soon.
Thank you so much.
Come join us this Tuesday and Wednesday night at Tri-Tactical in El Cajon for a phenomenal class. That's going to be April 14th and 15th from 6 p.m. to 10 p.m., 2 nights in a row. This 8-hour lecture by John Hearn is covering who wins, who loses, and why in the context of defensive gun uses. Don't you want to be better prepared for when your day comes? Come join us at this lecture. It's going to be awesome. Go to www.gunownersradio.com/John. All right, so I was on the internet looking for some good content for this show for today. And one of the things that I am always interested in looking for is, recent shootings, anything that's related to maybe a really good self-defense encounter, or even, something tragic and horrible that had some sort of a positive component, right? So that would be like a mass shooting situation where a good guy came in and saved the day, those sorts of things. And it's very difficult often to find these types of stories on the internet. I have used a ton of different, very specific Google searches. For those of you who don't know, the Google machine is amazing if you learn how to use it a little bit more specifically. So, for example, if I wanted to find somebody online and I just Googled their name, I may not get a lot of good, hits. I might get a ton of different people with that name, might get a ton of different information. But if I have like one specific piece of info, so let's say I have a name and I have a city, if I put the name in quotes and then I put and I put the city in quotes, I will only get Google search hits that meet both of those requirements. So often when I'm looking for these kinds of stories, I will put in quotes something like mass shooting and good guy, or I'll put mass shooting and dead suspect, things like that, because then I can get news articles that cover that topic, and sometimes it helps me find more what I'm looking for. Well, I found a resource recently called gunviolencearchive.org. And when I first found it, it's not really clear where a lot of the data comes from. When you look at the website, you're kind of like, I don't know, is this a pro-gun thing or an anti-gun thing? The little header or footer at the bottom of the website doesn't say, sponsored by this company or this person. And if you read the About Us, it's not super clear. So I was very suspicious when I first found this website. And I saw on the homepage, they have a gun violence archive for 2026 that lists homicides, the numbers of injuries, mass shootings, mass murders, ages of children involved, officers involved, all sorts of things. And one of the things that it mentions is defensive use. Well, under defensive use, there's not anywhere for you to click on a defensive use report. So if I go to the reports tab on this website, defensive use is not one of the options. It says children killed, accidental deaths, school incidents, mass shootings, but there's no defensive use. So I looked at the URL for this website. It's gunviolencearchive.org/reports. And if I clicked on one of the reports like children killed, the URL stays the same, gunviolencearchive.org/children-killed. So I was like, well, let me try typing in defensive-use. And it does have a report. It's just not available on the website under the reports tab, which I thought was interesting. So that leads me to think perhaps this isn't a super gun-friendly website, but it's got a lot of really interesting data. So you can see here on the screen, every defensive use that they find, they put under that operations column, view incident and view source. And that's going to give you a lot of information about the specific defensive use. So if you click view incident, it gives you kind of some analysis, how many people were injured, if the suspect was killed, things like that. And if you click view source, you can actually find the story from usually a local news source. And these are stories that you could not have found if you just Googled around, defensive gun uses in Milwaukee. It's not just going to come up on the first, 7 pages of Google results. So anyway, I thought it was an interesting resource. I wanted to share it with you guys and talk about it a little bit. But there are a lot of defensive gun uses. If we're just looking at the first week of April, we've got maybe about 20 on this list since April 1st. And I'm sure, obviously, these are just the ones that this system is finding and logging. I'm sure there's been plenty more that didn't get reported or didn't get put into this system. But it's just an interesting resource for the next time your anti-gun friend says defensive gun uses aren't real. You can show them actual, a database that's actually tracking with local news sources.
This is interesting. This is a very good find, Dakota. It's a couple things. I'm just kind of bouncing around this website, and there's a couple of things that occur to me. Number one, we are in an environment where anti-gun groups have such propaganda and such influence on the news that it is jarring when we run into something that isn't anti-gun advocacy or isn't pro-Second Amendment advocacy.
Right.
So it sucks that it's got always in your head, in the back of your head, is this pro or is this against? I do think that it does appear to be data. You know what I mean?
Right.
Just data. And it does appear to be unvarnished data.
A nice thing is they don't include suicides, which is often skewing a lot of data that we see related to gun violence. So I like that suicides are not included in these values unless it was a murder-suicide, then they include it. And then they also have an actual definition of what they consider a mass shooting, which is so rare these days, so rare to have a website define mass shooting for you. Which in this case, it's a minimum of 4 victims shot, either injured or killed, not including any shooter who may also have been killed or injured in the incident.
Yes, that was my number 2, and I think that's great. Rich, can you pull up what we talk about the explainer section of the website?
They also have the methodology page as well that gives a lot of great information.
They do, and the about us and everything. So look at the explainer. So like you were saying, Dakota, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but
go ahead.
That definition of the mass shooting methodology and reasoning, they even explain what the explainer page is. This area of GVA is to provide explanations to why we do some of the things we do and provide a more in-depth explanation for some of our more common frequently asked questions. They talk about the suicides. They even talk about something, the IP blocks. This
Which is what you were talking about.
I was saying, when you first sent this over to me, I couldn't access it at my office because it said, hey, it's blocked. They give definitions of defensive gun use. One of the issues we have, I really like this explainer page. I'm glad they included it. But one of the problems we have is that the other side does such a good job of conflating issues. And we were saying there've been 174 mass shootings in 2026, when the reality is they call just about anything a mass shooting, or they call it just about anything a school shooting. And this is basically saying, hey, here is exactly what we're referring to, and it really truly is just data and their mission. So the next thing I really liked was their mission statement. The Gun Violence Archive is an online archive of gun violence incidences collected from over 7,500 law enforcement, media, government, commercial sources daily. Okay, why is that important? Because if the incident doesn't make it into those 7,500 law enforcement, media, government, commercial sources that they're using, then they're not going to report on it.
Right.
So it defines its universe.
But what is 100% going to end up in those numbers that you just referenced? major crimes,
Yeah.
mass shootings,
Sure.
all of that is going to be basically 100% represented in this data set. What is not going to be 100% represented in this data set is unreported defensive gun uses.
Right.
And they talk about that. They say there are sometimes questions about DGUs that are not reported to police. GVA can only list incidents which can be verified. So that is a fantastic way to kind of take a look at this data and say, okay, here's what we actually have and what we're able to find. They also have a definition of school shooting, which I really appreciate, because often when you look at data sets about school shootings, it is including things that happen across the street of a
Yes.
school or in the parking lots or after hours. This website defines school shootings as an incident that occurs on the property of the elementary, secondary, or college campus where there is a death or injury from gunfire. That includes school proper, playgrounds, skirt of the facility, etc. The defining characteristic is time. The incidents must occur when students, staff, and faculty are present at the facility for school or extracurricular activities. So it's not counting a bunch of kids meeting up after school and shooting each other in the parking lot, which is often classified as a school shooting when it's actually more accurately classified as gang-related violence.
And they actually have a line here too, as you mentioned, neighborhood or neighboring areas. It specifically says incidents that take place on or near when no students or faculty, staff, or present or involved are not considered school shootings.
And that's important because I've been trying to figure. I wish we could come up with different terminology, like rather than call it a school shooting, call it something else. But one of the things that is important is not where it occurred, but why it occurred. So by saying, hey, it has to actually occur within school hours. It has, when school is open and there are actually students there, because if it occurs during that time frame, then the motivation is most likely this terroristic murder of students, which is a very specific thing. And it has a very specific set of solutions and circumstances and that sort of thing. When you have two gangs who, go to a playground at midnight on Saturday during the summer and shoot it out, or get into a drug deal and it ends up being a shootout, that doesn't tell. There's no solution to that is going to stop some disgruntled, mentally unhealthy student who's trying to, get revenge on the world by going and tragically and horrifically killing a bunch of kids. I think this is great. I got to tell you, this website's really great. Now, that doesn't mean it's perfect, but nothing is. But man, this is really, really good data.
On that, on the page over on the far right, under operations, there's also what's important, I think, to note is that there's a view source. You can click that, and it brings you to the article or whatever their source was for the information.
Interesting.
Yeah, so you can see like the
track
local
it.
news story or the mass shooting tabulator for 2026, according to this website, says 99 so far in 2026. And so, earlier we were talking on a different segment about that congressman who said 178 or whatever. Well, according to this definition, it's been 99. And maybe for next week, just for funsies, I'll break those out into what types of shooting those 99 were, just because it might be fun. I'll share with you guys what the breakdown of that is. What is it? A house party? Is it out in public? I'll try to get some actual data on those 99 just for sharing's sake. But yeah, it's an interesting resource, and I've been looking for something like this for a while. But everything I've ever found, I have felt has a very harsh lean one direction and doesn't really state clearly how they come to their numbers and their values. But
Now, it looks like you can get a free account and you can have a username and password. Did you do that yet?
no, I did not.
It looks like it's free. I wonder what that gives. I'm going to have to check that out. But anyway, well, this is awesome. Anything else we want to talk about? Because this has been really interesting, and it is Gun Violence Archive, gunviolencearchive.org. In fact, they even take donations. It looks like it's a not-for-profit out of Kentucky. Well, how interesting. I think we should spend a lot more time on this.
Evidence-based research since 2013 is what their website says, and it has numbers for unintentional shootings. So like the 2025 tabular data for the year covers total number of gun violence deaths, all causes, and it was 38,822, which I feel like I hear much bigger numbers from other sources.
Well, yeah.
But then, it breaks it down: homicides, suicides, injuries, officer-involved accidents, subject or suspect killed or injured, defensive uses, unintentional shootings. So like in 2025, according to this website, 1,169 defensive uses of a firearm. So I don't know. It's just interesting. That's more than 3 a day.
It is. It's good info. But one thing I want to caution everybody out there is, what if there are twice as many murders and mass shootings, or 10 times as many murders or mass shootings as we think? And what if there are no defensive gun use, instances?
Statistics may not always be on our side on this topic.
Let's just say that. Let's say the statistics are completely not on our side. That doesn't matter.
Does not matter.
Your rights are not dependent upon statistics. So it is very, very good to know these numbers. I highly encourage everybody to go to gunviolencearchive.org. Check it out. We're going to continue to check it out. It's new to us. Maybe in a couple episodes we'll say, hey, you know what? Don't use it. But for now, it looks like a really, really good thing.
I just created a profile, just so you know, you're asking.
Yeah.
Look what pops up immediately when I log in.
What is that?
It breaks it down
like a
by
dashboard.
category. Yeah.
Interesting.
It gives a whole lot more for us to look at.
So
Nice.
it looks like the thing to do is to create your own free account. Check it out. Know the statistics, because it makes you smarter. It makes you better when you have discussions. But always remember, statistics be damned. You have the right to keep and bear arms. You have the right to keep and bear arms so that you can defend yourself.
Yep.
You need to defend yourself with the most effective tool for self-defense ever created by man, and that is, of course, a firearm. So statistics are great. Know them, and use them, but statistics be damned when it comes to trying to infringe on your right to keep and bear arms. So there you go. Gunviolencearchives.org. Anything else we want to talk about?
Nope.
Okay, awesome. Check it out.